All right, hey guys, how you doing? Um, so I'm your social studies teacher, and today is the 19th anniversary of 9/11. Right now, raise your hand if you feel like you know a lot about 9/11. Okay. Obviously, you guys were not born yet, and your parents may have talked to you a little bit about it at some point. I just posted an assignment, okay? Usually when we're in school on 9/11 anniversary, I show a video. But as I told, I think my history classes, I'm not going to show videos during our 2 days together. It's just, I can't use that. So I posted a link on YouTube. It's a HBO documentary called 9/11 in Memoriam. It's an hour long. And it's a very interesting video because it focuses on New York. Okay, that day was a Tuesday morning, and there was an election being held in New York City. It was a primary election. Primary elections help you choose which candidates are going to run against each other for which party. So you might like have 5 Republicans running against each other for the chance to go up against the winner of 5 Democrats. You follow me? That's a primary before the general. September, then November, okay? And so the mayor of New York at the time was a guy named Mayor Rudy Giuliani, okay? And Giuliani is known as one of the greatest mayors in New York City history. He cleaned up that city. Have any of you guys been to New York? Nobody? Okay. I've been there a couple of times. I'm not really a big city guy, even though I was born in a big city, but of all the big cities I've been to, and I've been to a lot, New York is my favorite. It is just, I mean, Times Square is just really cool to go to. You've seen it on TV a million times. And Giuliani really cleaned up New York City, where it was safe to be a tourist. You know what I mean? Because people were in the 70s and 80s, they were getting mugged. You go down there, there's, you get beaten up, taking your money and stuff like that. There were, nudie bars down there on Times Square, homeless people, crime. The 2 times I've been there, I felt completely safe. Completely safe. I had no fear. Okay. So Giuliani gets credit for a lot of that. But he had a film crew with him that morning. They were just going to follow him around during the primary election day. It's just like they were doing a documentary. Well, they're out and about, and then the first plane hits. And they're starting getting messages. He's like, hey, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. Now, guys, I was here at Bishop Carroll that morning. The social studies department, this is before the AC was built. Okay. And so that was just grass over there. And there were 2 trailers that were portable classrooms. Okay. The whole social studies department was out there. Okay. It was me and Mr. Kenton, Mr. O'Connor, Mr. Finkeldine, and Mrs. Berry, who you might know as a sub around here sometimes. Okay. I guess I'm the last man standing. All right. So, there's no intercom system out there. You got your own AC unit. You got windows and a door. It was awesome. I love teaching in the trailers. Okay. But coming in the second hour, just like you guys, second hour, Blake Creer was the kid's name. I remember to this day. He came into my room and he said, Mr. Ebright, a plane has flown into the Twin Towers. And I'm like, okay, I'm not an expert on New York. I hadn't been there yet. Most people don't refer to it as the World Trade Center that don't live there. We're just saying the Twin Towers. I know what that is, right, in New York. And so I had this TV in my classroom, an old one with rabbit ears. Okay, and so I turned on the TV. And I think by that time, the second plane had hit. And then everybody knew, and I'm thinking to myself, how many people work in those buildings? How many people are going to die? And so I'm kind of freaking out. Mr. Shuckman, do you remember Blake Creer? Yeah. Blake Creer's the kid that came into my room. We were in the portables. the social studies department. And so I had a TV, I still have it in there, it's got rabbit ears. And so we started watching, and basically that whole day we were in shock, just watching this. And then we went home, and everybody knows, unless you're like out in the woods somewhere, everybody knows what's going on. Well, this documentary you're going to watch just kind of follows the mayor throughout that day. And the chief of police is with him, Bernie Carrick. And he's like, they interview him and stuff afterwards, like, I need air cover. How does the chief of police in New York City call the Pentagon and get air cover? And then they find out the Pentagon itself has been hit. Okay, how many of you guys know what Flight 93 is? What happened with Flight 93? Okay, so that's the one that crashed into the field outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Okay, President Trump is visiting there today, so is candidate Biden, and then Vice President Pence, and Biden's going to travel to New York too. They'll be at different times. Okay, they won't like be competing with each other, but so 4 planes were hijacked, right? There were 19 hijackers. 18 of them were from Saudi Arabia. Okay, they were all in the country legally on visas. Okay, they were in different states, groups of them, and they were given instructions. So some of them had to learn how to fly a plane. But what's pretty interesting about this is at one of the flight schools in Florida, one of these hijackers goes to get training to fly. But he doesn't want to learn how to take off or land the plane. He just wants to learn how to fly the plane in the air. And the instructor's kind of like, okay, you know. And so their mission was to train themselves. They didn't know what the mission was going to be. Okay, you don't tell terrorist cells all the details of the plan. Okay, and so over time they're doing training. They're being funded. This is by Al Qaeda, Bin Laden's organization in Afghanistan, and so 9/11, the date, September 11th. If you go way back in history, back to the Crusades. Okay, 9/11 was the date of a major battle. Okay, and in fact, don't quote me on it, I think it was a major defeat by the Muslims at the hands of the Christians. Okay, and so that date is chosen specifically, 9/11. Okay, and you know, today as we sit here, our government is on higher alert than normal on this day. Whether you're, I mean, we have embassies in Egypt, we have embassies all throughout many countries in the Middle East. They're on high alert because of the date. Okay, so the date is significant. Now, so 4 planes were hijacked. Okay, and guys, prior to this, you have to understand, there were hijackings throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s. And almost every time there was a hijacking, the hijackers wanted something. Okay, some of them wanted to kill Americans or Jews, but the protocol was obey your hijackers, follow their directives, get the plane on the ground so that not everybody in the plane dies. Okay, this type of hijacking had never taken place. So the pilots and crew, when the hijacking took place with box cutters, that's what they were using as weapons. And we don't know exactly what happened on a lot of these planes because obviously there were no survivors. So they take control of the plane, and the pilots just and crew obey the hijackers. And so the hijackers basically took control of the aircraft. They were headed to the West Coast, all 4 planes. And so they start turning back towards New York and DC. Okay. Obviously, the first plane hits. About an hour later, the second plane hits the other World Trade Center tower, and then the Pentagon's hit. The people that were on Flight 93, guys, we had cell phones by 2001. Loved ones, knowing that their other loved ones were flying that day, were calling people on Flight 93, it was United Airlines, and telling them planes have been hijacked. And they're like, yes, ours has too. And they said, well, they're flying them into buildings, into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And so the people on Flight 93 knew what their fate was going to be. And they decided to change that fate. Now, the conversations that people were having on the plane with their loved ones, some of these are actually recorded. There's one gentleman, I forget his first name, his last name is Beamer. And he's in the back of the plane talking to his wife with a group of other guys on the plane. And they're coming up with a plan to try and take the plane back. Okay? And the last words Beamer's wife heard him say were, let's roll. And so we don't know exactly what happened, but obviously the plane went down in Pennsylvania. So they were trying to take back control of the plane. Okay? They spared a lot of people on the ground. That plane was either destined for the U.S. Capitol or the White House. It was headed for D.C. Okay? So those people are heroes on Flight 93. There is a good movie called Flight 93. Any of you guys seen that before? It's pretty good. I mean, you know, sometimes you get movies that are kind of cheaply made and stuff like that. It's well done. So I'd encourage you to maybe check that out. But the documentary I posted, and basically I got two subjects for you to write on. One, ask your mom or dad about where they were on 9/11, okay, and what, you know, because everybody's different. I mean, if you work at the airport or if you work on the base, you know, different things are going to happen quickly, okay? And I could, you know, talk to you a long time about this, but we've obviously got to move on to some other things. But, and then the other paragraph is just to comment about the video, okay? I have to warn you, okay? This is hard to watch, and this is one of the reasons I'm making it optional, because it is graphic. They do show people that were in the towers above where the plane crashed, jumping out of the building. Okay, which is just gut-wrenching to watch. I cry every time I watch this documentary. I can't help myself. Okay, and I pass around tissues in class before I show them. Okay, it's hard to watch, but I'm a firm believer that we need to remember what happened. Okay, in all of its horror, we need to remember. We have to be vigilant. Okay, against those that want to do us harm. So that's why I'm giving you the assignment. It's not due till Monday night. Okay, so you got plenty of time if you want to do it. If you just want to watch the video, you can, or you don't have to. Okay, maybe watch Flight 93. Okay. You guys have any questions about 9/11? I mean, if you get a chance to go to New York and go to the museum, the memorial there, it's very well done. You can go underground. It's underground, okay? And so you can see the base of where the building was built, okay? This is not the first time they tried to bring down the towers. Back in 1993, there was an attempt to blow up the World Trade Center with a van filled with explosives that blew up in the parking garage underneath. It didn't bring down the towers, okay? This attempt worked, okay? All right? Okay, so when we left off yesterday, I know I was doing the death penalty, yes? I was talking about the Carr brothers and just how awful that was. The Kansas Supreme Court, on one of the Carr brothers' appeals, said that they should have been tried separately, and they should have been sentenced separately. And so they overturned the death penalty. Okay. Well, the state of Kansas sued to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was 9-0. The U.S. Supreme Court said, no. Put the death penalty back on. Anthony Scalia, who was not the Chief Justice, but he was on the Supreme Court, he's since passed away. This is about 5 years ago. He said in all of his time as a judge, he said this was maybe the worst crime he's ever seen. Okay, it is horrifying. And as I think I said in the other class, I had a friend, actually a buddy of mine that used to coach baseball with me here. He's a parole officer. And he was down at the jail that morning when they captured him. And they showed no remorse. Okay, and haven't to this day. Now, Kansas has not used the death penalty since it's been reinstated. So I don't know if they'll be on there. I don't know how long they'll be on death row. It probably depends on the governor. If you get a governor in there that wants to carry this out, it'll probably get done. But guys, the issue of yesterday we talked about the church's stance on this. Okay, and one of the last things I'm going to say about this is the death penalty isn't a deterrent. So remember, you only get the death penalty for first-degree murder. That means you plan it and you carry it out. You follow me? So is it a deterrent if you live in Texas or Arkansas, and those states use the death penalty more than others, and you're thinking about killing somebody? Does it deter you from carrying out that murder? Because if you're caught, the state may kill you. Okay. Obviously, guys, you got the moral argument here. You got the economic argument. Okay. And then you've got the argument for victims. And sometimes the survivors, the victims' families, they want to forgive. Sometimes they want to see that person put away. Never to breathe again on this planet. Okay. Never to be a threat to anybody again. All right. So outside of the church's teaching, the secular view of this, okay, look at that and you guys can answer that. You have no doubt been taught about this. I heard Father Andrew talking about it a little bit yesterday. He said in the time that those people are in jail, many of them repent, come to Christ, and their soul is cleansed. Okay, so, like I said yesterday, I live in a house divided on this one. Everybody has their own opinion. So you decide, okay? Next thing we're going to do, guys, is privatize Social Security. And I really like teaching this. I wish you had history first so I could give you more history on it and then do government second, but it is what it is. Because this is this Social Security starts in 1935, okay, during the Great Depression. And if you know anything about Social Security, you know it's to help people that are retired, that are old, yes? When they can no longer work, they have income, okay? This is old age income, yes? Okay? Now, in 1935, they set the retirement age at 65, okay? So while you're working, you pay in a small amount of money into Social Security, 6.2%, okay? Now I'm looking at a check of mine, pay stubs. We don't get these anymore, so this is from 2016. Now, guys, the average income of an American citizen, if you average the rich, the poor, the middle class all together, the average income is about $50,000 in this country. That's a pretty good standard of living in this country. The average 50. And let me just tell you, I'm close to average. All right, so I'm a good example for what people pay in, okay? So every 2 weeks, I pay in $130. Okay, so every month, $260. Okay, how many guys have had a job? Okay, you have already paid into the Social Security system. When we talk about getting a refund because you're poor high school students, okay, you don't get this money back. Okay, now you guys aren't putting in this money, right? Okay, but you don't get that money back because you are investing in your retirement. Okay, and when this started, this $260 would go into what was called the Social Security Fund. You guys, hopefully you guys, yeah, okay, you guys can see that. All right. In the 1970s, so all this money would go in here and it would stay in there. As Al Gore called it, a lockbox. And that money would actually grow a little bit. All you guys have savings accounts? What kind of interest you getting on that money? Less than 1%? Less than 1%. So you're loaning your money to the bank and they're paying you less than 1% interest. Your money's not working for you. Okay? Huh? Well, that's a good place to start. Okay? There are other things that I'll talk about. But, okay. In the 1970s, guys, unbelievably, in the 1970s, Congress saw all this money sitting here in the Social Security Fund. They said, you know what? We could use that money for other stuff. We could use that for building roads and bridges, and the military, and other things. And they raided the Social Security Fund. It no longer exists. So the $260 that I put in, yeah, go ahead.
What year was that?
It is in the 1970s. Over time, they raided it and took it. Now, the average recipient of Social Security gets about $1,300 a month. Okay? Not a lot. Yeah, that's, less than $15,000 a year. Or around $15,000 a year. Okay? You want to live on $15,000 a year? So you need to save, okay, outside of Social Security. Does that make sense? If you have a 401k, if you ever get a job where they offer you a 401k, you're crazy not to do it. Okay, I put in a little bit over $200 a month into my 401k, and the diocese matches that. Up to 5 or 6%? 5% of my income, they will match. It's free money. Okay? As long as you're putting money in, they will put money in. Most companies, big companies, have 401k policies. Okay? Close to half of Americans have 401ks. Okay? That's the main source of retirement income. That's your savings. Now, you can't touch that money until you're 65 in your 401k. Now, you can, but you got to pay big penalties on it. Okay? So most people don't touch it until they're 65. And then you have a nest egg, so you can live on it if this falls through and doesn't work out. Okay? So let me explain what privatization means. Now, at $260 a pop, okay, if I divide $1,300 divided by 260, it's 5 people. It takes 5 working people, average middle class, $50,000 a year, 5 people to pay for grandma's retirement today. So the money goes from my checkbook to the U.S. Treasury to your grandmother. Now, some people get more than this. I was talking to Mr. Barber yesterday. He said he started working and paying the Social Security when he was 12. And he's still working. So his check's going to be bigger than this. My wife's check's going to be bigger than mine. She's older than I, and she makes more than I. Okay? So she's going to get a bigger check. People like say, take somebody that's a stay-at-home mom, okay, that may have worked a few years in her life and then kind of stayed home. That check's going to be less than that. This is the average. Follow me? Okay. Now, in order to privatize, the reason to privatize is this. Let me show you this. Okay. Guys, life expectancy in 1935, when they set the retirement age, was 66. The average American would live on Social Security for how long? 1 year. Today, the life expectancy is now 78. Now, ladies, you live a little bit longer than men, closer to 80. Men live a little bit less than that, like 76. Okay, so we're somewhere around 78. Okay, they've raised the retirement age to 67 because it's running out of money. And here's the major reason why. What's this? The baby boom. Okay, so after World War II, guys, we had 9 million people in the military at the end of the war. They came home and they made babies, lots of them. Okay, so this generation of people born in 1946, they're already retiring, but so are these people in here. They're just hitting 65 or 67. Okay, so we have a lot of people getting these checks. You follow me? Latest number is by 2037, there will not be enough money to write these checks. 17 years from now. That's a problem. So you're going to have to do one of two things if you run out of money, yes? You're going to have to cut this, and grandma's not going to get as much money, or you're going to have to raise this. Now, this is more likely than this. Okay? They call Social Security the third rail of politics. Now, I've already asked you guys if you've been to New York, and nobody has. But you've seen the subway on TV, right? The New York City subway. You hear about horror stories, people getting pushed onto the tracks or falling onto the tracks. If you do fall onto the tracks, don't touch the third rail. It carries an electrical current. If you are a politician and you try and change this system, your political career will fry. Old people vote. And so let's say your party says, hey, we want to reform this system, fix it. Well, the other party is going to say, they're trying to destroy Social Security. They're trying to take away your money. So politicians are afraid to even tinker with it. We're running out of money. In the year 2000, George W. Bush was running for president, and he said, I'd like to privatize Social Security. And he won. But the Democrats ran commercials, literally, guys, like a cartoon commercial of George W. Bush pushing an old lady in a wheelchair off a cliff, saying that he was going to take away their Social Security. Okay? So when Bush won, he's like, all right, Congress, let's do this. His party, the Republicans, controlled both houses of Congress. They could have done it. But the members of Congress were like, no, 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 no. We want to get reelected. That's the third rail of politics. I'm not touching that. Okay? These people are worried about themselves, not the country. Now, you may or may not agree with privatization. You don't know what it is yet because I haven't taught you. So here we go. All right, everybody with me to this point? Any questions on what's going on here? Okay. Yeah.
So is the fact that we're running out of money because, like, mostly because Congress took it out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. And that money would grow a little bit. You know, not a lot. A little bit better than your savings account, but not a lot because it's in the government treasury.
Well, because to me, I mean, I guess with 5 people paying for it and you're working in a longer amount of time than you're retired, then I guess it would seem to be more than enough. But especially with all of the unemployment and the housing market that crashed.
Yep.
Then it seems like.
Yeah, it goes up and down. Yeah, there are times when more revenue's coming in, and times when there's less revenue coming in. Yeah.
Why could they raise Social Security?
They have the power to, obviously. It was easy.
Under like what gave them the power? Just them themselves?
They make the laws.
Congress owns the money.
Congress makes the law. Yeah, they control the purse.
So they didn't like even ask any of the citizens?
No, they make decisions for the citizens. We elect them and then they make decisions for us.
That's,
I know! It's crazy.
I thought we were the ones that were supposed to, I don't know, I mean, I guess that we do elect them, but at the same time, they work for us, right?
Yes. And in other words, they screwed us. Yes.
Where do unemployment checks and like our stimulus checks come from?
Good question. Okay, so actually, this is what I learned in history, or I teach in history, is there's 3 parts of Social Security. So your employer, the diocese, they also pay 6.2% for every employee. So for every employee here, the diocese has to pay, it's called payroll tax, okay? That goes to fund unemployment, okay? As far as the stimulus money for the pandemic, they just printed it. They passed the law, $3 trillion, okay? Now, some of that went to small business loans, right? Which a lot of will never get paid back. And then the checks just went out. Not just unemployment, but then they sent like $1,200 checks to people and stuff like that. Okay. There was consensus with Democrats and Republicans to do that. Okay. The second round, there's not consensus. They're fighting. Okay. They're using it as a political tool. Okay. Republicans want to do this for relief. Democrats want to do this for relief. They're not coming together so that they can blame each other. Just like with the immigration debate. They want to be able to blame each other. They don't want to solve the problem. Okay? But they don't want to do anything that causes any pain because they'll get blamed for it. Guys, the legislative branch has abdicated its responsibility to the executive. Blame him. Blame the orange man. Okay? Just because I called him orange doesn't mean I don't like Trump, and it doesn't mean I dislike Trump. You don't know. Yes.
So has that not caused any inflation with all the printing?
Oh,
Oh,
the I word, inflation. The biggest places where we see inflation in our country today, which it has not yet, crazy. Energy prices, which are down right now, so you're not seeing it there. Healthcare and education are the 2 biggest inflationary areas we have. Food, somewhat. But yeah, I mean, at some time, the chicken's got to come home to roost on this. Stop it.
There is a depression.
Stop it. There's not going to be a depression.
And it's coming.
Okay? Got too much money in the market. All right. Now, we got to get to this privatization thing, okay? All right. So, 6.2%, $260. Okay. In order to privatize, we are going to have to raise taxes. Sorry. Okay? Because we're not cutting this. All right. So, we're going to raise this to 7%. Okay? So, now instead of taking $260 a month from me, we're taking $310 a month from me, the average person. Okay? Now, we still got to fund grandma, right? So, send that over there, 260. I got how much left over? Do the math. $50, right? Okay. We are going to do this in 5-year increments. It's going to take about 30 years to transition to a private system. Okay? So you get $50 a month that goes into your own private account. This is like the government saying, hey, you have to save this much money every month. You can't touch it till you're 65. It's a private savings account, can't touch it. It's for retirement, period. Now, what you do with that $50 a month, okay, 50 times 12, okay, it's $600. That's 1 year. Times 5 is $3,000. That's 5 years. Now, if you put this money in the market, the stock market over its history goes up between 6 and 12%. Can you guys see those charts back there on the wall? Over here. This is 1934. This is 2015. It's the New York Stock Exchange. Okay? There are ups and downs. On 9/11, guys, 2001, you can see a big hit. Okay? Right here. This is the housing bubble 2008. Okay? Now, if this extended to 2020, it would look like that. Okay? Under Trump, the stock market has gone up and up and up and up. Okay? It's got some ups and downs in it. Okay? We've had some huge, days where it loses, 1,000 points. Then the next day it makes back 800. Okay? So, guys, this is where you make money. This is where you put money to work for you. Okay? Now, is there risk involved with the market? Yes. You remember, well, the stock market crashed in 1929. Okay? Now, the market didn't go from this to zero on one day, on October 29th, 1929. That didn't happen. It went from here to here in one day. About half was gone. Okay? Now, we have things in our system now that will shut down the market if it drops a certain amount. It'll just close. Stop the panic. And then the next day it could do the same thing. Give us a few weeks and we might get that depression. Okay. Okay, so now this is gonna gain interest. Okay? So after 5 years, this $3,000 is more like $4,000. Okay? Now, pay attention here. If you were, because you can retire at 67, okay? Between the years of 62 and 67, you were doing the same thing as everybody else, okay? And you have $4,000 now in your nest egg. So the government's going to say, well, you don't need all that anymore because you have a little nest egg. So we're going to cut these checks to $1,200, okay? And use that money to help you get by the rest of the year, okay? Now, because we're taking off some of this, we can take off some of this. $240 is going there, and now instead of $50 a month, you're at $70 a month. Times 12, $600. Times 5. Is that right? Gosh darn it. I'm not very good at math, but 70 times 12 is 840. Times 5 is 4,200. Now, guys, the more money you have in the market, the greater return you get. Okay, if I have $100,000 in and it goes up, 2%, I get a lot more money than if I had $100. Yes? So this is going to create more income. So by the time of 10 years, you've got $12,000 in your nest egg. Okay? So if you were 57 when we privatized to 67, now you have $12,000 in your nest egg. And I know that's not a lot of money. Okay? But it can help us. I mean, that's $1,000 a month for a year. Okay, that's cutting into this. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to cut this down to $1,000 a month. We're going to cut this down, okay, to $200 a month. Now you've got $110 a month that you're putting in your own private account, times 12, times 5, added to what you already have. Now we're getting into some cash. Okay, so when you were 52 to 67, now you've got a nest egg. I'm not going to go through all the math, but let's just say you got $40,000. Okay, then you cut this to $800. You cut this to $160. You raise this to $150 times 12 times 5, added into this with interest. If you were 47 to 67, now you've got $75,000 in your kit. Okay? Now we've done 5, 10, 15, 20. You go 10 more years, and that number's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you start when you're 18 and you go to your 67, you will have more than $1 million. Well over $1 million. Ta-da! What happens if the stock market crashes? We all go into the crapper together. Now, do you have to put your money in the stock market? No. It's your own private account. Okay? Yeah.
Where does the times 5 come from?
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there's risk. There's only one country on the planet that has done this, and it was done under a dictator in Chile. His name was Pinochet, and he forced his people to do this. And guess what? It worked. Can you imagine? People that, work 40, 50 years, and then when they retire, they have all the money they need for health care, for vacation, traveling, to give to charities, instead of scrimping by on $1,300 a month. The money doesn't grow, guys. We are talking about $260 out of my check every month. You know what I can do with that money? I can make a lot of money with that money. Over 40 years. 50 years. I am. I'm doing it outside of Social Security right now. Not just with my 401k, but my wife and I put money away every month that goes into our investment accounts. Guys, we're going to retire early if we want. We're going to be in good shape. Unless stock market crashes. Okay? That's why you got to be careful about any both. I am a pocketbook voter. Do I care about social issues? Do I care about abortion? Do I care about guns and all these other things we're talking about? Yes. But the number one issue for me is the economy. Guys, a lot of the social issues that we have go away when we have a strong economy. People are working. They're too busy to cause problems. They're too busy to commit crimes because there's opportunity to get ahead. Guys, prior to this pandemic, guys, wages were rising for the first time in a decade. But then the pandemic happened. Hey now. Hey now. All right. You decide. I wasn't really fair to the other side, but there is risk involved. Okay? Hey, thanks for joining me. You guys have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Good. Hope you understood that. Yeah.